Hi everyone, today I will discuss the lesson 7 in financial management, which is the current asset management. What is physical asset? It is any item of economic value owned by an individual or a corporation. We are referring to items such as building, utility infrastructure such as electrical cables, water pipes, rail lines, and metro tunnels, and industrial assets such as oil rigs, chemical plants, and process plant conveyors. We are not talking about financial asset, human asset, or personal asset, as referred in their normal context, but we may be talking about non-physical things that affect these physical assets, like skill, data, system, and software. Other features of physical assets includes the value may be represented on the corporation balance sheet. It may be listed in the registry or asset repository. Its value normally depreciates over time. Its condition normally deteriorates with time or use. It is likely to benefit from good stewardship. And there are often lots of similar items around the globe which can benefit similar management. The management of a physical asset is like any other evolving management discipline. It suffers from terminology overload. The newcomer to the subject may struggle to understand the basics. This is partly because of unfamiliar context, but also because there are still relatively few people around to us. Managing assets effectively for utility is not optional this day. Across the globe, every society is faced with a significant asset management challenge, like emerging economies are trying to identify the lowest cost or highest return. Rapidly developing countries are faced with understanding the life cycle cost of their infrastructure. Or more mature economies are trying to find ways or extending the life of their infrastructure and also meet major global challenges like climate change. Asset management thinking can provide structure to assess in all these scenarios. It can improve the quality of life for millions of people. It is an important in a cog with a big machine or evolving civilization. It impacts positively on the well-being of the planet and everything on it. Asset management mindset, which sees physical assets not an inanimate and unchanging lumps of metal, plastic, concrete, but as object and system which respond to their environment. And normally, it is used and progressively grow old, then fail, stop working, or die. It is a recognition that assets have a life cycle. Important for those working in finance as it is for engineers. It is also an approach that looks to get the best of the asset for the benefit of organization and stakeholder. One of the challenges with managing an asset is that it is not sentient. It does not keep management ethics. It does not respond to the economy or politics, but it does respond to how it is treated and used. This creates challenge for management. How do you get the right behavior from an entity that won't listen? Asset management is the process of developing, operating, maintaining, and selling assets in a cost-effective manner. Most commonly used in finance, the term is used in reference to individuals or firms that manage assets on behalf of individuals or other entities. Every company needs to keep track of its assets. That's why the relevant stakeholder will know just what assets are available and what can be used to provide optimal returns. The asset owned by any business fall into main two categories, fixed and the current asset. Fixed or non-current asset refer to the asset acquired for a long use, while current asset are those can be converted into cash within a short amount of time. When it comes to asset management, there are two main things that individuals are interested in knowing. One, what role does the asset management process play? And two, how can a firm develop a good asset management plan? There are several reasons why businesses should be concerned about asset management. One is enables a firm to keep tabs on all its assets. The process makes it easily for our organization to keep track of their asset, whether liquid or fixed. Firm owners will know where the assets are located, how they are being put to use, and whether there are changes made to them. The recovery of assets can be done more efficiently and leading to the higher returns. Second is to help identify and manage the risk. Asset management encompasses the identification and the management of risks that arise from utilization and ownership of certain assets. This means that a firm will always be prepared to counter any risk that comes its way. Removes ghost asset in the company. Instances exist where lost, damaged, stolen assets are still recorded on the books. With the strategic asset management plan, the firm owners will be aware of asset that has been lost and not keeping recording them in the book. Helps guarantee the accuracy of amortization rates. Assets are checked on a regular basis. The process of asset management ensures that the financial statements associated with them are kept updated. Asset ownership is part of any public or private enterprise. To manage the asset effectively, a owner needs to develop a strategic plan. One is complete an asset inventory. Before anything else, an owner needs to take count of all the assets that he owns. If he is not aware of the exact number of assets in his inventory, then he won't manage them effectively. When preparing an inventory of a company assets, the following should be included. The total counts of assets, where the assets are, the value of each asset, when the assets were acquired, the expected life cycle of an asset. Second is a compute life cycle cost. If a business owner wants his asset management plan to be precise, then he should calculate the entire life cycle cost of each asset. Many company owners make the mistake of calculating only the initial purchase cost. During the asset life cycle, additional costs are likely to come up, such as maintenance expenses, condition, and performance modeling. The third is set levels of a service. After computing the life cycle cost, the next step is to set levels of service. But simply, it means outlining the overall quality, capacity, and role of different services that the asset provide. In doing so, a firm's owner can determine the operating, maintenance, and renewal activities needed to keep the asset in a good condition. And lastly, exercise a long-term financial planning. Ideally, the asset management process that a firm owner adopts should easily translate into long-term financial plans. With a good financial plan in place, the owner can then assess which objectives are feasible and which ones need to be prioritized. There are many benefits of adopting an asset management strategy. One is improving acquisition and use by keeping tabs on the company asset throughout their life cycle. A firm owner can improve their technique by acquiring and using assets. A good case in point is Cisco System, which was able to reduce costs by executing PC asset management. When implementing such a strategy, the company discovered wasteful purchasing practices, which is solved by developing a better strategy for buying the equipment needed by the workers. Second is improving compliance. Government agency, nonprofit organization, and companies are required to provide comprehensive reports on how they acquire, utilize, and dispose of assets. To ease the reporting process, the majority of them record their asset information in a central database. In such a way, when they need to compile the report at the end of their financial year, they can easily access all the information they need. Asset management for individual is roughly with the wealth management. It refers to managing an individual investment or estate. Asset management is important because it can help organization to reduce the total cost of operating their asset, reduce the capital cost of investing in the asset base, improve the operating performance of their asset, reduce the potential health impacts of operating the asset, reduce the safety risk of operating the asset, minimize the environmental impact of operating asset, maintain and improve the reputation of the organization, improve the regulatory performance of the organization, and reduce legal risks associated with the operating asset. The key to good asset management is that it optimizes these benefits. That means that the asset management takes all the above into account and determine the best blend of the activity to achieve the best balance for all the above for the benefits of organization. Understanding the asset have a life cycle is a key concept within asset management and is therefore worthy. There are dozens of different ways of representing life cycle, but the diagram is a simple representation of it. Life cycle is a key concept within an asset management. When we say acquire, it covers everything that goes into planning, designing, and procuring an asset. Some life cycle diagram capture planning as separate function. Proper application of these activities ensure that the asset is fit for purpose. Second is commission. This covers the activities of installing, creating, or building the asset and ensuring that it is fully functional. It is recognized fact that there is higher incidence of failure after first installation building of an asset. It is reflected in the need of commissioning stage in the life cycle to oversee the initial operation of the asset. Third is operate. This is normally the bulk of the life cycle for asset during which provides the function for which it was designed. During this period, the asset should be subject to appropriate monitoring, maintenance, and potential upgrade to meet any change in condition or operational requirement. For many assets, this phase is decades long. It may even be centuries. It is the phase that many engineers are most familiar with. And lastly, dispose. It is often the most overlooked phase. Asset can last beyond a human lifetime and can be difficult to consider asset disposal when it is so far into future. Asset management teaches us that we ignore any stage of asset life cycle, or a peril. It is a key period with a asset life with some asset. Example, in the nuclear industry, it can be extended and highly critical period. Key activities during these periods include the effective removal of the asset from operation, the disposal or recycling the asset or its component, and feed in the planning for the replacement to determine the operational requirement based on effectively operation and failure modes encountered. Understanding the risk. What is risk? It is the possibility of loss, injury, or other adverse or unwelcome circumstances. It is a chance or situation involving such possibility. The management of risk within asset management is critical. Why? Because asset managers are responsible for optimizing outcome for the good of their organization and therefore need to make judgment about which action best achieve the right blend of outcome based on organizational objectives. To make this judgment, they need to predict how their action will be impact to the future performance of the asset. They need to quantify both probability of their action causing a change in performance and they need to determine the impact or consequences that change in performance. As you can see, risk is probability of failure times consequence of failure. What does an asset manager do? One is developing policy. The asset management policy is the link between the organization plan and the asset management strategy. It is typically a set of principles or guidelines to steer asset management activity to achieve the organizational objectives. Second is developing strategy. The asset management strategy directs the organization asset management activity. It will determine the high-level asset management objectives that are needed from the activity to deliver the organization objectives. It will define the approach of planning that will be taken. Third is the asset management planning asset, which is the management planning looks and considering all the options for activities and investment going forward and then putting together a set of plans which describe that will be done when and by whom. The asset manager ensures that the plan delivers what is required by the strategy. The fourth one is delivering the plans. It is the bit where work is actually done on asset, whether assessing or monitoring them, maintaining or repairing them, or replacing them. This activity clearly needs to include the appropriate controls to ensure the work is done efficiently. The information gathered is fed back into the strategy and planning activities. The fifth one is developing people, which is the activity specifically about developing the skills and of the people to better deliver asset management activities. It spans from the boardroom to the toolbox and also through the supply chain. As well as individual skills, it looks the culture within an organization and how change can be managed to achieve optimal result for the organization. The sixth is managing risk. Understanding risk is a critical concept in asset management, and it is a key function and area of competence. It focuses on being able to assess the risk of the action or inaction on the performance of asset in the context of organization's corporate objectives. Second to the last is managing asset information. It is collecting and collating the right information to inform asset management decision to achieve asset management success. Too much data confuses the picture and costs money to collect. And lastly, the good asset management practice. It advises you that you should be sophisticated as you need to be. In other words, high levels of maturity in asset management practices for an asset base which is low complexity and low critically will attract unnecessary costs. Asset management practices on a complex and a critical assets bases introduce huge risk of an organization. And that's all for today. Thank you.